Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion advised. Oh, BlizzCon 2015, we hardly knew ye. Welcome back to the second episode of Unshackled Fury, the Warcraft podcast for the unwashed masses. I am still your host, Berserker. In a supersized BlizzCon episode this week, I have my first guest interview with Blizzard Watch writer and podcaster Matthew Rossi, and I'm breaking down all of the major developments from this weekend's Warcraft panels at BlizzCon. But of course, this wouldn't be Unshackled Fury if I didn't have something to rage about, so get ready for a heavy dose of first world problems. Let's rage! So there's a ton to get to this week, and I don't want to extend this section any longer than we have to, so I'll make this relatively brief. DirecTV, you guys are terrible. Blizzard, I don't know why you keep partnering with them, and I'm not sure that you're aware that this is a problem, but their customer service is a joke. Every year I have ordered the DirecTV feed for BlizzCon because I'm a complete fucking fanboy and I needlessly spend my money on all kinds of things when it comes to Blizzard. And this one is no exception. Every year, except for the year that I got to go to BlizzCon, I've ordered it through DirecTV, and every year they completely fuck up sending the code that they have to send that I tie to my Battle.net account in order to watch the virtual stream and get all the other cool bullshit that I love to get as part of ordering the DirecTV feed. Every year I end up having to call because they don't send the email. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. I get transferred to 19 different departments. I get hung up on at least a half a dozen times because their system stinks. And it's just, it's a joke. So my quick and desperate plea to Blizzard is please, if you can't find some way to work this out with DirecTV to make sure that the system is as flawless and seamless as possible. I mean, we're talking about pre-generated codes in an email. It doesn't get much simpler than this. If you can't find a viable partner to ensure that simple things like emails and codes can get out to people, then please, for the sake of my first world addled heart, find a new vendor. All right, enough of that. Let's get on to the news, because BlizzCon was fucking amazing, and there's a ton to talk about. Let's go.
And now it's time for News and the Blues.
My friends, this BlizzCon was truly one for the record books, and I can't say thank you enough to Blizzard for putting together what was yet again another 2 solid days of gaming and events and fun, and it's always a blast. I can't say thank you enough. So thank you, Blizzard, wherever you are out there. Amazing. Opening ceremony, let's get right into it. What did we see? The Warcraft movie trailer. After, 10 years of waiting to see this thing on film, in our faces, there it was. We saw Lothar, we saw Duratan, we saw Azeroth, we saw Draenor. I mean, it's all there, folks. It's all there. This is the telling of the First War, going way back to the origins of everything that we know and do and love about this game. And it looks to be beautiful and robust, very complete. And Duncan Jones, God bless you, sir. These are the kinds of things that are going to hook people in, and then hopefully that story will follow up, which we know Blizzard is the master at. And hopefully they've treated this material appropriately. Needless to say, Warcraft movie trailer, thank you for showing this. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. If you haven't seen it, hit that YouTube. Go do that thing. Make sure you see it, because you will probably watch it, 10 times? That might not be enough. I don't know. Just watch it. On top of that, what did we see? Oh, after what was a lengthy opening ceremony, which at one point I thought was going to be completely sabotaged by this poor Hearthstone guy that almost brought it to, well, he did bring it to a grinding, screeching halt. Chris Metzen, our Lord and Savior, came out, saved the day, and gave us the greatest intro cinematic for any Warcraft game ever. That's right, I'm saying it. You put my king, you put Varian Wrynn front and center. I know he might die, but goddammit, he is going out in a blaze of glory, and I love you for it. This cinematic had it all. It had the really high quality detail that we demand out of these Blizzard cinematics. It's the best they've ever done. The cinematics panel that they had later really went into depth about this, but seeing it for the first time just blew me away. It just absolutely blew me away. I got chills. I was sitting there with my boy Hannibal, started freaking out. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't handle all of these emotions running through my body. It was just that amazing. And seeing the gunships and watching the battle, and then, oh my God, there's Sylvanas. All right, there she is. She's blowing shit up, and they're working together, and they're going towards the Broken Isles, and it's chaos everywhere, and then Varian goes down, and you think he's gonna die, and then he said, oh, you gotta fight for it, and then, he jumps out, and Charlemagne busts into two, and he's stabbing the shit out of every woo! That was, oh man. Even just retelling poorly that version of the cinematic trailer, I'm worn out already, and I feel like I need to smoke a cigarette or something. I cannot tell you enough. Anybody who has not seen it, you have to go see it. A couple of other things that we found out about the Legion expansion real quickly. We know that it's going to come out in the summer, so that could be technically any time during the months of June and September, I suppose. I think that has more to do with financials than it does with anything, but with a beta coming in just a matter of weeks, people, last I checked, I've never seen a beta go 10 months. So I think that we're going to be seeing this expansion a lot sooner than some of us thought. It's going to be in a couple of versions, as is usual for Blizzard. There will be the regular version for $50. There will be the digital deluxe for $70. There will also be the Granddaddy Collector's Edition, which I always fork out a bunch of cash for because I'm an idiot. But I love all the stuff that comes in it at a cost that is yet to be determined because they don't have one. Pre-purchasing the Legion expansion now will give you a level 100 boost, and you'll get the Demon Hunter class a week early. They said, as soon as it's ready. So, if you're not into the physical box, like I'm a complete slave to, I say jump in there. Order that sucker now and get your early access, get all your good stuff. Along with this, because this was not part of any one of the panels necessarily, if you go on the Warcraft website right now, they have blog posts about all of the artifact weapons that will be coming in Legion. They have some of the models. They have some of the background story. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. In particular, one of them, which is very near and dear to my heart. But let's go ahead and jump into the world and content overview panel, where they talked about the world at large that we will now be exploring in the Legion expansion, as well as some of the raids and dungeons. Now, given the breadth of topics discussed at the 4 Warcraft panels, as well as the other discussion panels that were held off screen, I want to make sure that you know that I will be highlighting in this podcast what I think are the overall highlights from this weekend. For a much further in-depth look into each and every item that was covered, I highly suggest checking out the main Warcraft website or other websites for the breakdowns that they provide. So now, from the World and Content Overview panel, while there were many great discussions about Demon Hunter updates, the first 2 raids, Emerald Dream, and Suramar Palace, because we're coming for you, Gul'dan. There were also 10 new dungeons and 4 new zones. The biggest single announcement for me was that there will no longer be a single linear leveling path in Legion. Blizzard is going to be using their technology that they've developed for time walking to allow us to level through the Broken Isle zones in any order that we choose. So, I know for me, I'm going straight to Stormheim, which is the Vykrul zone, and from there, who knows? Maybe I'll go see the gateway to the Emerald Dream in Val Shara. That's where our first raid is going to be. If you want to go to one of the other zones, that's your choice. What they showed us essentially was a map that said at one point they were going to be sort of going in a circular, clockwise leveling progression, but they decided, you know what? With the tech that they have, why not just unshackle us and let us do whatever we want? The beauty of this is that if you want to jump into a different zone and level with a friend, even if you are several levels apart, the zones in Legion will now scale up to whatever you are. So if you're, let's say, level 105 and your friend is level 102, you can get together in the same zone, and the enemies that you see will be 105. The enemies that your friend sees will be 102. So what they have said is that they hope that the effect will essentially be seamless. I know for myself, having experienced the leveling bottleneck that comes with, well, every expansion, and with the leveling experience seemingly being on rails as of late, this is a very welcome change and a clear signal from Blizzard that they understand the player complaints about us playing how we want to play. The other big announcement that I felt came out of this panel was that at the start of the expansion, there is going to be a 40-person scenario that starts and picks up right where the cinematic ends. It's going to be 20 Alliance and 20 Horde banding together and fighting towards the Tomb of Sargeras. The developers had hinted at the expansion announcement at Gamescom that this battle is going to be one of the central, if not the central focal points of the entire expansion and will have lasting repercussions throughout everything that we do, beginning right there all the way to the end. And given the scope of what we saw in the cinematic, this is very easy to believe and something that I am very excited about. After that, we have the Road to Legion cinematics panel, which, again, based on the cinematic that we saw and clearly how pumped up I am about this, it was amazing, as always, to get an in-depth view as to how these men and women do their work. And I'll be honest and say that half the time, I have no idea what is happening or what they're talking about at the more technical panels that they have at BlizzCon, but I no less enjoyed this cinematics panel on day one. Like I said, getting an in-depth look into the cinematics team and how they employ a variety of photography techniques, motion capture, the use of older models from previous cinematics, and the development of the story that they use for the cinematic. It's always impressive. That team really is on the cutting edge as far as I can tell. I'm no expert, but from what it looks like, they're really on the cutting edge of what they're doing. It was very interesting to see. They showed, as part of the panel, a field trip that the team went on to a local harbor where they were able to climb aboard and photograph an 18th century ship, which they later used as a reference model for Varian's gunship in that cinematic. They also said that Sylvanas' ship that was in the cinematic was based off of old Viking ships. So it was very curious to see how they employ all of these real-world items to influence the things that they build in the game. They also discussed the emotional aspects that they hope to generate from that piece, and given my reaction, I would say that they've done that. So if you're maybe looking into a career field like this, looking to get into this type of work, I highly recommend finding a way to watch this panel in its entirety for an amazing insight into how these masterpieces are built. I know from sort of a layman standpoint, I love seeing how they work. Just anytime that you have the fortunate ability to watch master craftsmen at their work, you really have to take enjoyment of that while you have the chance. So on the second day, we had the other two panels, the first being the Legion Game Systems panel, which was very dense. I'm not going to lie to you. It would take a very long time to go through everything that was discussed in that panel. They gave us insights into artifacts, class halls, demon hunters, other classes, and a professions revamp that is very robust. Again, while more in-depth breakdowns are available and they're going to have new class blogs going up throughout this coming week, there were again two main topics that I believe were the most impactful. The first, of course, artifacts. For artifacts, we were given a few examples of the depth to which the artifacts will come, both in terms of story and aesthetic, and information on how the artifact power that's related to these weapons will come from quest bosses, rare spawns, rare drops, dungeons, raids, battlegrounds, arenas, you name it. From there, we were shown how artifact traits are unlocked by using that artifact power that we earn. We'll start with some traits being unlocked. We'll first unlock active traits that we put on our bar, while after that, there will be other traits that perhaps will be more passive. It looks like to avoid the cookie cutter issue we had with the old talent trees, because these artifacts do use a similar looking system to what we had in days of old, all traits will be unlockable. So it's not like you have to say, well, I'm going to make this choice or this choice and that's it. Eventually, you will be able to unlock every trait within each artifact, but they've said that it will take at least several months to accomplish. So I think for most of us, that will probably be a longer process than just a couple of months. But it was good to know that we're not necessarily going to be locked into having one progression path or another, that eventually we'll be able to have everything with a particular artifact available to us. We were also told that the weapon will become more powerful as the expansion progresses, that we will have opportunities to upgrade the artifact, and that the optional colors and models and all the cool extra shit that's going to come for these weapons will come from a wide variety of activities. So we don't have to feel like we're pigeonholed into doing one thing or another. Whatever it is that we like to do, there's going to be something for us. Secondly, and perhaps most important, transmogrification is getting an overhaul, and Warcraft is finally getting a wardrobe and storage system like what exists in Diablo 3. This means that as soon as an item is bound to your character, that appearance is added to a wardrobe and is now going to be account-wide. The only exception being that a character has to be able to equip an item to unlock it. So if you get something on one character, you just have to make sure that another character can use it if you want to use it on that character. One of the things they also said is that they are going to go back, look at the quests that we've completed, and if there is gear that we have either tossed or sold or traded or whatever, they're going to make sure that we get those added back into our inventory. So what was lost will now be found. There will also be a new Transmog UI, which they showed, and it's beautiful. It shows previews of each piece on your character on a screen. So it's like on the left side, it'll show your character. On the right side of this UI, it'll show, like they showed some helms, so you can click on a helm, and there'll just be rows that look like 20 or so at a time, where it'll show all of these different helms on your character, so you'll get a good idea just right away of what each of those will look like. There will also be saved outfits for the more fashionista-prone players out there. And we will also have armor stands now for us to show off all the tier we've collected over the years. Who doesn't want that? As somebody really who loves transmog, and I love all of the armor sets that are available out there, this is the greatest development in Warcraft since flying mounts. That's right. That's how I feel about it. Maybe since being able to run. I don't know. They must have added running at some point. I will say I have no idea what the purpose for void storage will be anymore, but I have a feeling that I'm going to find some way to fill that up too with a bunch of worthless crap that I collect along the way. Yeah. So, and one more thing. Tabards will also be included in this new system, and all I have to say to that is yes. And last, but certainly not least, the Q&A panel. As we all know, I love this one. Now, before I get into the panel itself, I want to take this opportunity to name my first Unshackled Fury Blizzcon MVP. Like a Birkenstocked Viking of lore, this man I had not seen in many moons emerged from the mist of backstage, calmly seated himself alongside his brethren, and he single-handedly saved my entire BlizzCon by confirming the Titan's grip will exist in the new artifact system, even though the Fury weapon appears to be simply a one-hander. So to Jay Wilson, Mr. @Angry Robotics, thank you, sir. You are my 2015 BlizzCon MVP, and may the light of the gods always shine upon you. So, as for the panel itself, it seems like me, Blizzard 2 has had enough of our collective shit. Half of the panel questions, if not more, were those chosen by us via the internet. And for the most part, this Q&A was maybe not the most entertaining, but it was certainly the most informative. And here are some of the things that we discovered from this panel. There will be something about the way we discover Ilaria and Terralion in Legion which will change the way we view WoW forever. The flying achievement will exist at launch, but you won't be able to complete it at launch, so apparently we're going to start on it as we progress, and then it'll be added in a later patch. Bolvar Foredragon will be making some sort of short appearance, likely at the Frozen Throne. There will be no new battlegrounds. There are no plans to update old starting zones for Legion, which I don't know why they would. The Broken Isles version of Dalaran is upgraded, and we are going to find out some of the secrets as to why. The team will get around to resolving old stories from Cataclysm at some point. Like I said earlier, Titan's Grip for Fury Warriors is not dead. We will be getting one more character slot coming in Legion, of course. We'll have our 11th class, the Demon Hunter. There will be no new scenarios in Legion. We will be allowed to use all specs in Legion, so I hope you're ready for tri- and quadruple spec. Karazhan could be, they hinted at this, a 5-player dungeon in patch 7.1. I would look forward to that very, very much. Rathian may be seen in Neltharion's lair at some point in High Mountain, and apparently he will look different. I don't know if that can't be good. That can't be good for us. Related to that, there will also be old gods playing a role in this expansion. Reforging will not be making a return, thank God. One of the things that they touched on was that they acknowledge that artifacts will not be used forever. So at some point, maybe we'll be displaying them on a mantle somewhere. That was kind of an interesting thing. And they also said that if we really don't like the artifacts, we can also transmog over them. So I know that's that's something I was very happy to hear, because so far I'm not that impressed. And while there will be a language barrier in the class hall between Horde and Alliance, who will share the same class hall, demon hunters of both factions will be able to speak demonic to each other. So if you've got a tome out there which allows you to understand that, go get that sucker. And finally, Jaina is not a dreadlord. That's probably the most important thing we had to learn, right? So like I said, there was a ton of information that came out this weekend. And these are just simply my favorites, the things I think are either the most important to me overall from the game or just me personally. So please hit the blogs, watch some videos if you can, and see all of the amazing news that came to light at Blizzcon this year. So just prior to BlizzCon, I had the pleasure of interviewing Blizzard Watch writer and all-around Warcraft expert Matthew Rossi. This interview was quite wide-ranging, from how he published his first works through his thoughts on Legion and beyond. He touched on many personal topics, and while the interview that you will hear now is abridged for the sake of time, I will be posting the full 90-minute interview I had with him, so please go check that out. He goes into a lot more detail about his life and his writing, and it's a real in-depth look at one of the truly interesting people in our Warcraft universe outside of the game. So here now, my interview with Mr. Matthew Rossi. Enjoy. All right, with me today, I have unquestionably one of the greatest guests that I could have ever asked for. He's the author of several published works of fiction. He's a featured writer and podcast host at Blizzard Watch, a warrior guru, a master of Warcraft lore, a dinosaur expert, and one of the toughest people you will ever meet. I'd like to give a warm welcome to the one and only Mr. Matthew Rossi. Mr. Rossi, welcome to Unshackled Fury. How the heck are you, sir?
I'm fine. Technically, I'm the third. So I'm not only am I not one and only, I'm the third. Like, they've had two others.
Well, you're the only one I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, if you actually Google me, there's some Italian race car driver out there making me feel bad about myself. Like, I drive other race cars, and apparently I talk like Mario, despite the fact that I'm actually Italian. I can't do the accent.
You're leading more lives than you ever knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so I have easily a million questions. Well, that's an exaggeration, but I have many questions that I want to ask you. And while the Warcraft questions are, I'm sure, what people have tuned in for and kind of the norm, I will get to those. I wanted to first ask you about your writing. I know that you have published 3 books, and they have kind of an interesting, side to them. They're speculative fiction. Is that? Am I getting that right?
Well, actually, technically speaking, the 3 books that most people know me for are speculative nonfiction, in that they're not nonfiction. They're not actually narratives. They're essays.
Okay.
And I have published fiction in other places. I've been in Postscript magazine and so forth. But the 3 books, Things That Never Were, Bottled Demon, and Atlas Atlantis, are basically collections of nonfiction. They're essays. Calling them nonfiction is kind of dishonest in that they are made up. Okay. Nothing in these essays is true, but they're not narratives. They're not like, John went down the street and saw a bowl of ice cream, but in the ice cream there were many eyeballs. No, they're not like that. It's just
right.
It's just, saying, hey, isn't this weird, and isn't this weird, and isn't this weird, and here's a weird thing you might not know about those 3 things that ties them together. And now that I've tied them together, I'm going to completely link that to this thing over here. And then, basically the book is like, I look at history, I look at science fiction, I look at fantasy, I look at, popular novels, I look at obscure stuff from like, the time period, and I say, what if with it? I'm like, what if this was real? What if the Knights Templar, instead of getting, burned at the stake and their order disbanded, what if they built giant robots that were powered by steam instead?
Okay.
Stuff like that. What if, during the War of the Worlds broadcast, Mongo invaded and Ming the Merciless tried to take over the planet Earth? What if a time traveler tried to go back to Sodom and Gomorrah to see what all the fuss was about? His time machine blew up, and that's why we think Sodom and Gomorrah were flesh pots of sin, because some guy blew them up by mistake with his time machine. But in general, the books basically came out of me having more ideas than I could ever actually do a story with. Like, when I came up with the idea for Napoleon, like, what if Napoleon on his deathbed had his mind transferred into a steam-powered robot that took over the world?
Okay.
I don't have a story for that. I just think it's cool. There's like, if there was this giant difference engine with Napoleon's personality running in France somewhere, and that it was running like criminal empire or whatever. I just like the idea.
And this was one of the things I'm very curious about. Is you are, in my estimation, quite prolific when it comes to the amount of content that you in particular put out for Blizzard Watch to get to them. How do you get yourself to that point where you're constantly able to put out new articles and new thoughts? Is just the way that you're built as a writer, or is there something that you do? In
terms of like how I do it, I mean, like you talk to like Ann or Alex or anybody who writes a lot for the site, it just comes down to, part of it is just simply making yourself do it. It's just making yourself do it. And they're not all gems. I've written things that I look back on and go, ugh, that wasn't great. I've pushed out Know Your Lores and then thought later, I could have done that so much better. But the thing about it is, at least I did it at all, and sometimes that is the thing. I mean, to a degree, writing is just all about, it is about the act. It's like, you can't be a swimmer if you don't swim. You can't be a runner if you don't run. You can't be a writer if you don't write. I mean, to a degree, if you wrote something great once, that's good enough. I could probably, you could probably say, okay, well, I put out that one book, I'm a writer. But you don't want to stop. You're a writer, you don't want to stop. So that's part of it, is just making yourself, commit yourself to it, make yourself do it. And you can go back and later on and go, oh, God, what did I do? This is what editing is for.
And speaking of that, does Blizzard Watch give you an opportunity to maybe revise some of the things that you did on the site that shall not be named?
No and yes. I mean, we can't go back there. They
right.
AOL owns everything. I could sit back. I could take up and write a KYL right now. That was one of the things I wrote about then. But for that matter, when I was there, I often went back to the same subjects because you totally could. There was never really a mandate telling you not to. In terms of like, I'm writing the same stuff for Blizzard Watch, but it's just, I don't have to worry as much. Like, I know who my bosses are, and I can talk to them, and if they're, they have an objection, they will just address it with me. And it's much less like corporate BS-y, which I appreciate. It's nice. Now,
for the full sake of disclosure and behind-the-scenes witchcraft, this is going to air after BlizzCon, but we can't not talk about BlizzCon, where we've been, where we're going, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
So, looking ahead, the devs have said at one point that going forward into Legion, that either this is part of a continuation of a story, that this is not necessarily a gigantic expansion, that this is not to be some sort of a standalone, that this is, I guess, the second part of a trilogy, or maybe the third, of something a little bit more extended. Coming out of Warlords, just getting to that first, are you satisfied with how the story and the lore has been progressing through, let's say, Pandaria, through Warlords, and up to where we're going, or where it looks like we're going?
Pandaria was a really good expansion.
Agreed.
I've actually said at times that I think it actually surpasses Wrath. That depends on the day. Like today I said that, and I'm already starting to feel like I don't necessarily agree with it. But it was a very good expansion. And
well, that content patch where we had, what was it, the storyline with Varian and Anduin, and that whole arc.
Yeah.
I wish they could do that every patch.
The fact that they had, if you look at the way Miss worked, and I don't want to dwell on this, but Miss had it had patch 5.0 where the original story was set up. Then in 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, every single major patch had something content related. It had, even if it was a PvP oriented patch, it had a little bit of story content. Every single patch. And that, my friends, is how it is done.
Oh, you hope
it
so?
Has not. No, I mean literally. If you want to look at the perfect deployment of lore in an experience, there it is. Miss of Pandaria. Boom, 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 boom. And the problem I actually have, and I've said this 100 times, is that they put them out too quickly. They put out major content patches like every few months.
And this is in Pandaria, you mean?
Yeah, in Pandaria. In Pandaria. Yeah. We're talking about Pandaria. We get to patch 5.4 in the rollout of Siege of Orgrimmar. And then we have, I think, close to 16 months of nothing.
That sounds about right.
And that was a huge. We are still reeling from that. That huge content drought was a huge, huge problem, and it was exacerbated by the fact that when Warlords came out, Warlords looked like it was going to be even better.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
Not only was it gorgeous, not only was it good to look at, but leveling was just unreal.
Oh. For sure.
The garrison felt like it was this great idea. We have a central location that we range out from.
It felt very organic.
Yeah, we start with the suicide mission, we establish the garrison, now we have the garrison, and if you're Horror Alliance, it doesn't matter, your garrison's in, either way. That is your home base, and you go out, and each zone of the expansion feels like you on another leg of the mission. And it works really great. And then you get to level 100, and the story, it hits like a drag chute. And it's not that the story is bad. I will actually I'm going to do something I haven't done when I talked about this. The Garrison campaign is actually good. It's a good story.
And you're talking about the one where it's sort of oddly gated, where you're doing different stories.
Yeah, one a week thing. One of the things that's interesting about it is it doesn't even play for the same for two different people. I don't know if you know that, because I only noticed it because my wife and I were doing it, and hers was at a different time than mine. You aren't getting the same quest that another guy in another garrison gets. It's not exactly the same.
Why do you think they did it that way?
Just to keep it, unpredictable. And it works in a lot of ways. But the problem with it is because it's gated the way it is, because the most you're going to see of it is one chunk of story a week. Whereas if you look back to 5.1 and the Operation Shield Wall / Dominance Offensive stuff, however fast your reputation went up, that was you unlocked things and you unlocked the quests, and you could go through the whole thing in a week or two, or you could take longer. Right. And I know that they were worried people would burn through it too fast, but what ended up happening was people lost interest. The story itself, though, is actually really good.
Oh, it's very good. I loved
it. Especially stuff you go out and help Yrel, or you go up to the Sargerai place and you find out what's going on with those guys. It helps you explore the world. It gives you reasons to go places. But the problem is there wasn't enough of it, and it was gated the way it was, so you felt like, okay, well, I'll see the rest of this next week. Now all I get to do is go to parts of the world and just grind up on a Pexis bar. Yay. And that lasted...
That's very engaging.
Yeah, and the other problem with that was that 6.1 comes along, and it has nothing.
Oh, no, it had something.
No, it had nothing in terms of story. And that's like, we talk about this a lot. It's one of the weird balancing acts of MMOs is that players will skip quest text. They don't necessarily pay attention to the story. And anybody who said, I don't know why I'm here in Draenor, either wasn't paying attention to the story or was making a point about how it was told. Because it was actually pretty obvious why we were there on Draenor the whole time.
Yeah, we had huge cutscenes and everything.
But they're not... When you start doing the raids and you start doing stuff... For me, the biggest problem of Warlords of Draenor, which, in terms of the story is actually pretty good. But the biggest problems are, A, there's a shift. I used to call it the third issue shift because it reminds me of something that happens in comic books a lot. When, like, the first couple issues of the comic come out and the creators realize, oh God, no one's reading this. Quickly, now he's got superpowers and he doesn't use guns anymore and he fights witches instead of criminals. Mm-hmm. And you're like, what happened? Like, this is completely different. The Burning Legion stuff kind of just comes out of nowhere. I mean, you're never given any reason to think Gul'dan's going to pull that one off, and then suddenly, boom, there they are, Burning Legion everywhere.
When I've heard this complaint about Hellfire Citadel itself, and it seems to be supported by some of the things that Blizzard employees have said, or at least some of the devs have said, where they were going in one direction, and then it is an obvious shift.
Yeah. To
another direction. I mean, we have the main bad guy, or at least the way it started out, and now we're saving him, and he's like corpse fucking one of the bosses that we kill later on. It's very weird.
Yeah, and part of the problem too is this: when you get to you're doing the various things. When you're leveling up, the first problem is that Nirzul is a boss in a dungeon. So,
which I hated.
Nirzul, who's one of the titular warlords of Draenor, is a boss in a dungeon. And then you're like, okay. And I don't want to miss the point, quite frankly. There is a point people often miss, is the actual warlord of this expansion is you. We are the warlords of Draenor. Because we rise to power, we conquer all our enemies. I get that. If anyone in Blizzard ever ends up listening to this, I get where you were going with that. I'm not ignorant of that point. My point is that you did not tell it very well. It's like it's like when you tell a joke and the punchline is, I got the punchline, but it wasn't funny. That's like, I get your epic sweeping moment, but you don't actually make me feel like the warlord. You just make me feel like I ran through some innocent, so easily pushed over mooks, because Nirzul goes down in a dungeon. Blackhand and Kargath go down in the first raid tier.
Well, now that one in particular, and I have to believe you agree with me on this one. Having Kargath as the opening boss of the first raid was just so deflating. I mean, that guy had an amazing story. They did that Lord of War series, and his was just, it was awesome. It was riveting. I think people really got into that.
Who would believe that he would then be willingly the opening boss at Highmaul?
It was awful.
It made no sense. It didn't even fit what they'd already said. Yeah, that's always bothered me, because if he were the end boss of Highmaul, like if the Iron Horde had sent him to clean up, like he's like, well, obviously you ogres have failed, so now the Iron Horde will show you what's what. At least you would have felt like, okay, that's fitting of the stature we're supposed to give this guy.
So looking forward to Legion, since we are talking about storing and carrying that forward, I know one of the concerns that I've heard from other people is that with Legion, it looks like they're really doing this sort of kitchen sink approach, in that we're getting the Legion, we're getting Emerald Dream, we're getting Ajara, we're getting the return of Valeria and Terralion, we're getting all of these various things.
Honestly, I'll tell you right now, I don't actually see the problem here, and here's why. Mm-hmm. All of those things tie together. Like, if you're doing a Burning Legion expansion, this is the quote-unquote biggest demonic invasion since the original invasion during the War of the Ancients.
That's what they've said.
Everything you just mentioned is tied to the War of the Ancients. The Emerald Nightmare is tied in through Xavius, who was there during the original Burning Legion invasion, and who Sargeras turned into the first of the Satyrs. Ashara, original Burning Legion invasion, she's the one that basically told them, yeah, this is a great idea. Open the portal wider and let Sargeras come through so I can finally have a boyfriend worthy of me.
Let's jump in the hot tub.
So I don't think, and Illyria and Terralion, they literally, the end of Warcraft 2 is them going through the Dark Portal to fight the Horde, because the Horde had just been sent to Azeroth by the Burning Legion, like, by Gul'dan, who was, working hand in hand with Sargeras. It ties in. All this stuff ties in. So I don't think it is a kitchen sink, everything in the kitchen sink thing. It just looks that way to people because, well, for one thing, we're very cynical after Warlords. Let's just be honest. We are looking at this jaundicedly because we've been burned.
I think that's been going on to your point from earlier, the Siege burnout.
Yeah.
It seemed like it really picked up after that.
The year plus in Siege really it created something that is still there. I think that the flying debacle did not help.
No.
People thought that Blizzard was bait and switching them or, BSing them.
It sounded very insincere.
Yeah, I try really hard not to aspire negative motivation to these people because people who work at Blizzard are not trying to lie to you because they don't, to screw you. They want you to keep playing the game. That's how they get their paycheck and stuff. That being said, all sorts of stuff can happen in development and you have no idea and stuff changes. You know what I mean?
Well, do you think that there's, and I know exactly what you mean, and I think that that's something that Blizzard has a bit of a problem in my own estimation with, in that there's a difference between having actual legitimate PR department who issues approved statements and the like, and then you have developers and others who are trying to do the community a service by, not going through those channels and just saying, hey, here's a thought, or here's something that's going on, or trying to be more casual about it, and they just get fucking hammered every time something happens or doesn't happen.
Let's be honest, too. One of the biggest problems of this expansion has been lack of a coherent response that isn't PR.
On a lot of things.
Yeah, and love him or hate him, Greg Street, Ghostcrawler, when he left, one of the things he took with him was he was a lightning rod. Every good and every bad thing people thought about the game was often aspired to him. And he himself would say, no, man, this is a team. It isn't just Ghostcrawler and his amazing friends. But people, people blamed him for mage stuff for years when he didn't have anything to do with that class design. Nothing.
Absolutely. Well, it's our tendency, I think, is, I don't know, maybe it's a species thing.
They look for a face.
That's right.
And without him, they tried to build up for a while the Warcraft devs channel and tried to have an official place to go. But the thing is, there's no engagement there. People don't see it as personal, so they don't view it as important. I don't know how.
Yeah, there's no face.
Yeah, and they just need something to identify with. Honestly, I hope that with Legion, we've grown as a community to the point where we don't really feel that need as strongly, but we'll see what happens. I do think that in terms of the everything in the kitchen sink accusation, I think it's just kind of, I straight up find that to be inaccurate. I think everything that we see can be explained as part of the Legion's invasion. It's all, my concern is more along the lines of this. What happens after this?
And what do you think happens after this? Because that's something that I wanted to make sure I got your thoughts on. Given the trail that we have, what do you think?
Man, I don't even know. In terms of the actual story of Legion, obviously I don't know. I mean, there will be stuff. We know that Gul'dan's going to be back. We know there's going to be this new elf race, the Nightborn, who are pre-Sundering Night Elves that were left stewing in their evil for 10,000 years. So that's going to be fun. We know there's going to be an army of demons coming through the Temple of Sargeras. We know there's going to be massive upheaval. Some folks are going to die.
And I have.
Everyone has their own theories,
about
but I honestly think we're gonna get to see, we know the Emerald Nightmare stuff that's going to happen. That's going to be part of the story of one zone. We're going to see what the High Mountain Tauren deal is going on with those guys. We're going to see what Sylvanas and Ganniva are up to, and I get the sense that they're going to be continuing from their feud in Cataclysm. Legion, I think, is really going to be heavy on the episodic zone storytelling because you're going to have the class hall and you're going to have the artifact to level up. Also, I'm hoping, and I'm not. This is a hard prediction to make, but I'm hoping we're not going to see anything easy in terms of what we do. When we get to level 110. What happens next? What do we do at 110? Because we've got this Burning Legion army coming through. The first raid is apparently going to be Emerald Nightmare, which is, as far as I can tell, a fairly old god-heavy experience. So what's the deal there? Are the old gods taking advantage of the Burning Legion coming through again like they did the last time? Are we going to be trying to stop them? this is the thing where there's so much room to go with, and I don't. It's impossible to predict. Like, why is Sylvanas doing anything? Like, what does that have to do with the Vrykul? As Ian pointed out when we were talking about it, Sylvanas has got those, like, Valkyr ladies that keep alive.
A few of them, anyway.
And that's like, maybe she's going to get more?
Yeah.
Or trying to find out, like, where her soul ended up when the Valkyr, like, there's a ton of stuff to deal with.
And that short story, by the way, that's related to that Dave Cossack wrote is amazing.
It's a very good story.
Very good. So if anybody listening to this, if you have not read that, go to the website for Warcraft, look it up under the media material they have. It is phenomenal, and it explains a lot about the state of Sylvanas now, what happens to her right after the events of ICC. It's very compelling stuff, and I do recommend it. You touched on something that I, as a warrior, as somebody who has actively campaigned for this very specific thing, on every outlet that I have, I need to ask you this question. What should you and I do first if there is no Titan's Grip artifact? What should we destroy first?
I'm going to be finding a new class. No, I'm not kidding. I will not play a warrior in Legion if they take Titan's Grip out.
I will probably quit. I'll just lay that out. You'll never see me again.
Yeah. I don't want to see single-minded Fury warriors that like single-minded Fury. I don't want to see you guys dissatisfied, but if somebody has to be, better you than me, man. I've wanted them to basically have it be like, when Sargeras went bad, he broke his two-handed sword.
Yes.
And pieces of it, like one of the pieces went to the Pantheon, and wielded as Tasselash and Gorable. Tasselash is being wielded by one of the Pantheon, and Gorable is being wielded by one of the by Sargeras himself. And I've always thought they should be like some kind of like when the Avatar came through, the Avatar of Sargeras, it should have been using like an Avatar of Gorobal. And I think we should basically have a situation where warriors get the Avatar of Gorobal, and if you're a Titan's Grip warrior, you basically would get that, and then you'd get an Avatar of Tasselash, so you don't go crazy evil using the Avatar of Gorobal. You'd get like a good one and the evil one to keep you balanced. So you don't go nuts. But two slivers like pure Titan artifact level goodness. Boom, there you go. There's your Titan's Grip weapon.
I have kept you here for almost entirely too long, but if you'll permit me, I have one more question that I have to ask.
Sure, go ahead.
This is a question from a friend of mine who, his name is Hannibal. He and I have been raiding for a number of years together, and he once asked on a site that shall not be named this question. It was never answered, so I wanted to ask it to you now. At full strength, who would win in a duel to the death? Deathwing the Destroyer or your masterful, glorious beard?
Okay. One time I was walking home from a supermarket that was near the first place I moved when I moved up to Canada. I live in Edmonton. I don't know if you know that. This supermarket is still there. It's a Safeway. And it was right next to an older folks' home. And it had the dumpsters were like in a really weird place where it was like the dumpsters for the older folks assisted community was right next to the supermarket dumpster. Okay. And this dumpster was absolutely packed with wasps. I don't know if you know anything about a wasp.
Oh yes, we get them.
These were large wasps, like about 2.5 inches long. One day, it was a hot summer day, and I went down there and I bought some soda and I was walking home with it and went through the wasp cloud, did some swatting, was like, oh, stupid wasps. I get home, and my beard is buzzing at me. So I reach in, and I find that my beard has entangled a wasp, and has cut it in half.
Yes!
And I'm not kidding here. This wasp was bisected in my beard, my tangled up beard. So at full power, my beard can kill actual living things. Deathwing is fake. He doesn't exist. He is pixels. My beard can kill real living things. My beard wins.
So, thank you for coming on. Before you go, I just want to make sure that anybody listening knows that they can find 3 of your books, Things That Never Were, Bottled Demon, and At Last Atlantis on Amazon.com. And is it still on Selfie?
Yes, it is still on Selfie.
Okay.
I should point out one thing.
Yes.
Things That Never Were, I don't see a cent from anyone buying that because it's out of print. I am someday going to put it back out, but for right now, it's a good book. I like it. Go ahead and buy it, and by all means, tell people about it. I just don't see any money from it. So do you buy the other two first, and then if you just feel like buying another book, then go ahead and buy things.
Please, everyone, do this. Help our man out here. He gives us so much, and the very least that we can do is support him in the things that he creates for us. You can also read his latest musings on all things Blizzard at BlizzardWatch.com, and of course on the Blizzard Watch podcast. And follow him on Twitter at Matthew W. Rossi. Before we go, do you have any other plugs you want to get out there?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, by all means, sign up on the Blizzard Watch Patreon and give us like a buck a month. Every little bit helps.
That's perfect.
We're going to be doing Blizzard Watch people are going to be at BlizzCon this week. I am not going to be there. I know this is after BlizzCon, but if you were there, I hope you get to meet some of them. They're all good people, and talk to them about whatever. They're seriously, like everyone who works at Blizzard Watch is just a dream to work with. They're good people.
Excellent.
Even Alex.
Excellent. All right, Matthew. Well, I can't thank you enough, honestly, for coming on and being my first guest here on Unshackled Fury. Who knows? Maybe my last. But really, I appreciate you coming on, and certainly look forward to all that you have in store for us in the future. So, Mr. Matthew Rossi, everyone.
Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed the extended episode for this week. We have just a ton of amazing stuff coming our way in 2016, and I can't wait for us to all take that journey together. We'll see you again in 2 weeks, and please remember to follow the show on SoundCloud or iTunes, and me on Twitter at BerserkerRage for all further updates. You can also email me at unshackledfuryshow@gmail.com should you need. So until next time, thank you for listening. Keep kicking ass out there in Azeroth and beyond. Strength and honor to